Hey, so I want to share a tale with you. A tale called The Story of Beowulf. It comes from a time long ago, not too long ago. So about 1,000 years ago, we found this book. If you know anything about J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings, he did an extensive research, and I think he even had a class when he was still alive, over in England on this specific book. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. They had a Hollywood movie, but it didn't at all do this thing justice. I mean, it looked good. Angelina Jolie was in it, and there's a lot of inappropriate scenes. And I kind of want to debunk some of the things that Hollywood did on this story, because honestly, it's epic, for real. I can give you a quick renditioning. I want to read the whole book to you, but that would be like 3 hours worth of material. So this story is about the Viking thanes who became Christians, and one of them in particular, this man named Beowulf, he was a hero, and the story isn't just a legend or a myth. It was found, actually recorded with 5 other manuscripts. One of the manuscripts was the letter of Alexander the Great to Aristotle, which I read this summer, and that was also a very interesting read. And it took about 2 years to study this book before I wrote The Story of Blind Beauty, and a lot of the themes that I've learned from this book, right, that was found in like not an abandoned abbey, but like some guy's like library, right? Super interesting and very Christian themed. Like the Vikings, yes, before they were Christianized, lived as a pagan society, but their tales are very, very similar to the Christian belief. You know, the Viking word for heaven was Valhalla, and they also had a belief in hell. And like when the Vikings who sailed the high seas told stories or sagas or tales, many of them were told from heroic perspectives. And I mean, even like looking at the cover, this, is like a dragon head, right? And like a lot of people say, oh, dragons, mythical creatures, it's made up. Do they exist? Well, that's what J.R.R. Tolkien actually like wrote a whole section about, right? Debunking the myths, the creatures, the tales. In this story, to give you a synopsis, right? Beowulf, the hero, hears about a Grendel monster, right? A giant that terrorizes the Scyldings, right? I can give you the map, right? So it takes place, right? Modern day Norway, Sweden, just north of Germany, where many of, people of European ancestry come from, right? So the Baltic Sea, the place where Beowulf is from, was from the land of the Geats, and he hears that the Danes are in trouble from a giant named Grendel. And he he gathers thanes to go and deliver the Danes from this evil demon-like giant, right? And like, if you read the Bible, there's plenty of them in there. Like, if you read anything about David or Joshua or Caleb, like, you see that in the Bible there were giants. And even to these Norse warriors, right, like Beowulf, in the time probably preceding, the ending of the Roman Empire as, it was formed 500 years, like after Christ ascended, there may have still been giants in the land. So the story takes place, it was found 1,000 years ago, but the story could take place from a time well before recorded, what was written and recorded and found. So, very interesting story about a hero who fights a giant named Grendel, a dragon, right? Like, what you mean, like a fire-breathing dragon? Yes, like that's what is described in this book. Now, you can make that, you can try and understand that as myth, or you can try and read it for what it is and understand what kind of story is being told. And yeah, I mean, we could talk about Leviathan. We could talk about, what the Bible describes as drakon, the Greek word drakon. Super interesting tale, right? And yeah, I know that was a little bit longer than some of you probably wanted to hear, but yeah, it's a very interesting tale, and I'd like to share some of it with you. So yes, the story of Beowulf, great literature, and very interesting perspective. Let's give you a little bit of the first part of this epic, this saga of the Vikings. Hail! We have heard tales sung of the Spear Danes, the glory of their war kings in days gone by, how princely nobles performed heroes' deeds. Oft skilled Shefing captured the mead halls from many peoples, from troops of enemies, terrifying their chieftains. Though he was first a poor fondling, he lived to find comfort. Under heavens he flourished, with honors fulfilled. Till each neighboring nation, those over the Whale Road, bowed under his rule, paid the price of tribute. That was a good king. And then to the king, a boy was born, a son in the hall, who was sent by God as relief to the Danes. For their ruler well knew the distress of his people, while long without leader before his coming. To that child, the Lord of life, the ruler of heaven, gave worldly honor. So skilled son Beo himself won fame. His glory spread wide among nations of the north. The young man did as he ought, won goodwill, while under his father he gave out great gifts, so that his dear comrades, when he became king, would then stand by him as steadfast retainers when war came. By such deeds of honor shall a man prosper among all the peoples. Then, still full of strength, at his fated time, skilled passed away, left for the Lord's keeping. Friends bore him out to the flow of the sea. As he had earlier directed his dear comrades, while, as lord of the Scyldings, he still wielded words, the long-loved ruler over the broad realm, there at the harbor stood a ring-proud ship, icy and eager to set out, a nobleman's vessel. And they laid down the beloved leader, their renowned ring-giver, in the bosom of the ship, next to the mast. There was a mass of treasures, wealth, brought there from faraway lands. Nor have I heard of a ship more splendidly laden with weapons for battle and dress for war, with swords and shirts of mail. On his breast lay many of these treasures, to travel with him through the mighty power of the plunging sea. Nor did they give to him any lesser gifts for the people's treasures than did those who, at the first, had sent him forth, alone as a child, over the stretch of the sea. Next they set over him a golden standard, high over his head, and let the tide bear him off over the ocean. Sad were the people, mindful of mourning, nor to speak truth do any men know among wise advisers, those heroes under the heavens who received that cargo. So the writer of Beowulf gives you an introduction to his dad and how his dad passed. He was a good king. And apparently the Viking thanes, when a loyal lord died, they would give him honor. Sometimes they would put him in a ship that was his own, that he created as a young man, or, had made in his old age after great deeds done in war or done in his kingdom, right? Sometimes they would set the ship sail, right? And they would also burn it. They'd shoot it with arrows to be burned, to let what that chieftain or Viking lord, what he died with, would pass on with him in his eternal home. That's how they saw it. It was the old way. Some modern ways of burial, it's you put the body in the ground. But for a chieftain, I think it's interesting. Think about it. They let their dead chiefs go in their ship and be burned, right? It's very interesting. I've got candles going on, obviously. These might be super hot, right? Fire is interesting. It's light. It's beautiful. And, how long it took those ships to be built. When a honorable lord would die, it was a great way to send them off, so to speak. And many of them, before they became Christians, did that probably in honor of them. I just think it's an interesting way to honor a king in his death, to put his body in a ship and to let his ship go out to sea. Apparently this one was not burned, but other ones during the Viking Age were burned in honor of their king. But yeah, it's interesting that the Vikings were converted, many of them, to Christianity, and obviously the author of this book is writing from a Christian perspective. Many people debate as to who the original author's audience was. I want to give truth. I don't want to give just broad speculations. I have taken time to really read this and study it. And I'd like to give more of these clips and more understanding of what it was like to live in the age of chieftains on the earth. And, to give you more understanding of your heritage, where you come from as a German or a Norwegian or a Swedish person, or somebody from Denmark. Our history is full of heroes, and the way that Christ reveals himself through heroes and heroism, I think, is beautiful. And yeah, I hope you enjoy what you learn, and I'm going to have fun teaching about it. I know that. So, God bless you. Stay strong. Be mighty. Be filled with joy. And keep seeking peace. Blessings.